Today I want to talk about AIP snacks that you can usually get when you're out at like most grocery stores, at some convenience stores throughout the US and other parts of the world. A few months ago I did a video on 25 AIP snacks, and I will link to that one of these places up here, so you can go back and watch that. But a lot of that is also snacks that you have to make or just snacks in general. But today I want to focus on snacks that you can get out when you're out and about, and that are kind of something that just in case it's like an emergency or you happen to be traveling and you're gonna go to a grocery store and need to get something, or you're just out and suddenly like the snack attack hits kind of thing, or your blood sugar drops, or any of these kind of things. Doing AIP can be a little bit complicated when it comes to having food, because what can you eat when you're out? So I just want to give some of these ideas for things that you can eat if you go to a grocery store. Sometimes convenience stores have some of these things. A lot of times Targets, Wal-marts, all of these kind of places would have that. In the US. And in the other countries, it's maybe a little bit more complicated, but I think a lot of the food stores, grocery stores and stuff may have at least some of these. So I will give you the complete list, and then maybe if you need to pare it down because you're outside of the US or something, just know that these are some of the options that you may be able to have as well. I will have all of this written down in my blog tomorrow, and I will have the principal list like this in my PALEO freebie library starting tomorrow as well. So before I get into this list, I do want to make the caveat that you should check labels at all times to make sure that there are no non-compliant ingredients. Some of these may have things like pepper or spices or any of those kind of things. So just check the labels. I'm not going to give you specific brands because the brands seem to change a lot. And that could be outdated within a week for all I know. So I'm not gonna give you specific brands, but I'm gonna tell you certain kind of things, and I would like you to check the labels to make sure that they'll be compliant. All right, so the first thing are avocados. They are usually pretty easy to find in most stores. You can get a lime, sprinkle some lime juice on top of it to make it a little bit more palatable, because I personally don't like avocados by themselves, but like with lime juice, I'd love it. Just make it a little bit more palatable for you if you're like that. Easy snack. The next one are canned clams. Again, check ingredients. Then you have canned chicken. There's a lot of times the canned chicken has salt and water, so make sure that's just those things and nothing else. You can get coconut flakes. Those are typically found in the baking aisle, but sometimes you can find them in the snack aisle as well. One brand name is Dang, makes those plain coconut chips that are toasted. So if you can find those, great. Otherwise, just the non-toasted coconut chips make a great snack as well. You can do coconut water if you're really thirsty. You can do canned crab. You can do dehydrated fruit, like dried fruit. Just don't do a lot of this because it'll raise your blood sugar, but just a lot of dried fruit is a great one. Raisins typically are generally AIP compliant wherever you find them. Other things like blueberries and cranberries and other things may have other ingredients like sunflower oil, so do watch out for that. But like with dehydrated or freeze-dried fruit, a lot of times those are just the fruits, and they are being found pretty much in most kind of places these days. I know I've seen them in my Target, my grocery store, all that, so that's a pretty good snack to have as well. Epic bars are a good one. The beef and apple, the bison, and the salmon ones are all AIP compliant ones. I've been able to find them in most of the grocery stores and Targets and Walmarts around near me. Fresh fruit, it's always a good bet. Just get some fresh fruit, a banana, an apple, whatever. Frozen vegetables can also be a good snack, like frozen broccoli florets or cauliflower, things like that. You can eat them like as a snack raw like that, or if you do have access to a microwave, you could heat them up a little bit, but I mean, just raw, frozen can be fun. There are certain green juices that are fine, that are compliant. Just drink these in moderation. It's kind of like fruit. You don't want to drink too much, but it could be a good option if you're out and about. Canned herring, which is a fish. That one's a good high-fat kind of snack to have. Hearts of palm are a delicious snack. If you've never had them, they're just like these white, long kind of tubes, which is the heart of a palm tree, and they are really good. You gotta make sure, again, there's no kind of preservatives or anything in the can which is a little bit complicated sometimes, but they make a good kind of hearty kind of sink your teeth into kind of snack. Do canned kippers, again, another kind of fish. You could do kombucha, again, check the ingredients on it, but the ones that are compliant just make a good kind of probiotic snack. You get some leafy greens, some spinach, some arugula, a mixture of things, and just kind of make a salad. You can do canned mussels. And then you can do olives. Make sure you don't get any ones with the pimentos because those are nightshades and therefore not compliant for AIP. But the black and green ones typically don't have any other kind of preservatives in them. Just make sure that you're getting the ones that don't have any. You get canned oysters, plantain chips. Make sure you're getting the ones that are cooked in like coconut oil or palm oil, not any sort of like sunflower or canola oil or anything like that. You can get plain pork rinds. Epic does make these, but I've seen other ones that are just fine as well. And then you can get prosciutto. Prosciutto is actually a really good snack. Typically you find that either in like the butcher area where like they cut sliced meat. Sometimes you can find them in the meat area if they're separate in your store. Like our local Kroger has a cheese and meat area, which is where we find the prosciutto, but it's not over by the bacons or anything. It's kind of strange. But just so look in multiple places if you have to. And typically prosciutto is just the prosciutto and maybe a little bit of sugar for curing, but that's fine. And salt, and there's nothing else in it that's like there's no spices. And then I mentioned raisins are a good one. And then rotisserie chicken, if you can find it with just salt. Some stores have that. Some stores have a lot of stuff on it, so definitely be careful with that. But I know like my Whole Foods, for example, does have one that's just salt. So if you're near Whole Foods, you may get lucky and be able to find one of those. You can do canned salmon, canned sardines. Make sure it's packed in olive oil. You do sauerkraut. Make sure that this is the one that's like in the refrigerated aisle because that would be fermented. The sauerkraut that you may find in like the aisle with the ketchup and the mustard is typically not fermented. I mean, if it's sitting there, it's been canned and so it's kind of dead. I mean, it would work in a pinch, but usually they use preservatives as well. So I would look for like the Bubby's kind of brand, or there's a whole bunch like Ozukie here in Colorado, and then there's a couple other brands like I know at Costco and other things. So there's many brands these days. Just make sure it's compliant. You can do seaweed snacks. Just avoid any sesame oil or soy sauce. You can do canned shrimp, or you can do pre-cooked and frozen shrimp. Again, you can eat it frozen or you can let it thaw for a little while, but sometimes you get those little really baby ones that thaw really quickly, or they can be a kind of a yummy snack. Again, I like to, if I'm gonna have that, I like to sprinkle some lime juice on it, so I would get that in like a lime, just to kind of give it a little bit of flavor. Many stores have smoked fish, like salmon or trout. Again, check for the ingredients. Sometimes they're like lined with pepper on the outside, so you don't want that. But if it's just like a plain smoked fish, that can make it like a delicious snack. You can do sparkling water. Something like LaCroix water is good. It's just flavored, but there's nothing else in there that's not AIP compliant. So that's just something like a nice refreshing kind of snack to have. So sweet potato chips are something that have really been coming on the market lately. I remember back when I first did AIP, Jackson's Honest was the only one that made it, and they made it in coconut oil. Now I see a bunch of other brands that have them, and they have things like avocado oil and coconut oil and a bunch of these safer oils. So again, look at the back at the ingredients, but those are a delicious snack, but also a good accompaniment to your lunches. You can do tea, like a black tea, an herbal tea, or a green tea. It's a little harder when you're out and about to have hot water, but if you can find like cold water, you can make yourself an iced tea. You can do canned tuna, and then you can do fresh vegetables. So anything that's AIP compliant is fair game in the veggie aisle. So like broccoli, carrots, jicama, cauliflower, cucumbers, celery, mushrooms, radishes, any of these things like that you find in the fresh vegetable aisle, they can make a delicious and very nutritious snack. And then if you remember a couple of weeks ago, I did an interview with Zora from Wild Zora, and their bars are available in some of the Wal-marts around the US. Not all of them, but in some of them. So if you happen to be near one of them, that also could be a great option. So hopefully that's a good enough little list of things that you can get. Again, some of these things like fresh fruits, fresh veggies, you can find anywhere in the world, I would hope. Some of these other little things, maybe not so much, but again, these are just snacks for like, so you don't panic while you're out and about, or if you happen to be traveling and need to have something now. We always recommend that you plan and see as much as you can prior to it so you don't come into the situation. But if you do, now you have a list of things that you can draw upon and not panic when you go into the store, knowing that you have a huge list of things that you could eat. So hopefully that helps. And otherwise, if you haven't watched the video on my 25 AIP snacks, I will link to it below, and then it will also be on the end screen that you'll see after I get done talking, so you can click on it. And that will give you some other snack ideas that you can like make and bring with you, as well as some of these that you already heard, but just giving you more snack ideas because I know it can be a little overwhelming and definitely make you panic when you what can I eat? What can I eat? So we want to eliminate that. There is plenty that you can eat. Anyway, if you haven't gotten the password to my Paleo freebie library, the link to get that is below, and I will see you next week.